A love that turned to pain. The sharp sound of the slap echoed through the silent room, cutting through the air like a blade. My cheek stung with a fiery pain, but it was nothing compared to the humiliation surging through me. My heart pounded as I stared at him, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Larry, my fiancé, the man I had trusted with my whole heart, had just struck me. His eyes burned with anger, his chest rising and falling rapidly, as if he were holding back words he wanted to scream. But he didn't say a thing. Instead, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I stood frozen, my hands trembling as I touched my burning face. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just from the physical pain but from the deeper wound his actions had left in my soul. This wasn't just a single moment of rage. It was a betrayal, a breaking point. And in that instant, I knew everything had changed forever. My name is Elizabeth Banks, and I am 26 years old. For the past 7 years, I had been in a relationship with Larry Martinez, the man I once believed was my soulmate. We met when I was just 19, and from the beginning, he made me feel special, like I was the center of his universe. When he proposed in June 2024, I was overwhelmed with happiness, convinced that we were destined to spend our lives together. Our wedding was planned for August 2025, a sentimental date marking the anniversary of the day we first met. I had spent years dreaming of this moment, believing that my life was falling perfectly into place. Little did I know I was headed straight for heartbreak, the beginning of the cracks. The excitement of wedding planning consumed me. By October 2024, I had dived headfirst into organizing every little detail, the color scheme, the flowers, the music. I envisioned a breathtaking ceremony with a delicate light blue and white theme, a picture-perfect spring wedding. I spent hours scrolling through Pinterest, curating mood boards, and sending Larry my ideas. His responses? Always the same, short, dismissive, uninterested. "Looks good," he'd say. Or worse, he'd just send a simple thumbs-up emoji. At first, I convinced myself he was just busy with work. I told myself that maybe he trusted me so much that he wanted me to have full creative control over our special day. But deep down, I felt a nagging worry when I tried to ignore. His lack of enthusiasm wasn't just about the wedding. It was about us. And it wasn't the only sign that something was wrong. The other woman in our relationship, Larry's mother, Kathleen Martinez, had always been a dominant presence in our relationship. At first, I admired their closeness. I thought it was sweet how much he valued family. But as time passed, I realized it was more than just a strong bond. It was control. Kathleen was involved in every aspect of his life, and, by extension, our life. She called him multiple times a day, giving him advice on everything from what he should eat for lunch to what kind of car he should buy. But what hurt the most was that Larry always listened to her over me. Every decision that should have been ours as a couple, where we'd live, how we'd spend holidays, even small choices like picking out furniture, was run through her first. I became the outsider in my own relationship, the third wheel in what should have been a partnership between two people in love. I should have seen the warning signs. But love makes you blind. The breaking point. Looking back, I don't know exactly when Larry started changing. Maybe he had always been that way, and I just hadn't wanted to see it. Maybe it was the stress of the wedding, or maybe it was something deeper. His temper started surfacing in small ways, an irritated sigh when I asked him for his opinion, a cold stare when I brought up wedding plans. Then came the sharp words, the cutting remarks, the way he dismissed my feelings like they were nothing. And then the slap. That single moment shattered every illusion I had about our love. It was like the final piece of the puzzle falling into place, revealing an ugly truth I had refused to see. The man I loved, the man I thought would be my husband, was not who I believed him to be. As I stood in that silent room, my cheek burning and my heart breaking, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't love, and I could never marry him. His mother always came first. I felt like I was always competing with his mother for his attention. But I kept telling myself that things would get better. I believed that once we got married, he would finally put our relationship first. I couldn't have been more wrong. 3 weeks ago, I had a day I had been dreaming about for years. Wedding dress shopping with my mom and sister. It was supposed to be a magical experience, something I would cherish forever. We visited several bridal shops, trying on dress after dress, searching for the one. And then I found it. It was the most beautiful gown, elegant and classic. The moment I saw myself in the mirror, I felt like a princess. Tears filled my eyes as I imagined walking down the aisle. My mom and sister were just as emotional, their faces full of joy and admiration. It was everything I had ever hoped for. Excited, I snapped a picture and sent it to Larry, eager to share the moment with him. A few minutes later, he replied, "It looks beautiful." For a brief moment, I felt truly happy. What I didn't know was that, right after he saw my message, Larry showed the picture to his mother. And that one simple action turned my perfect day into a nightmare. The nightmare begins. Kathleen, my future mother-in-law, was furious. She called me multiple times while I was still out shopping, but I didn't answer. I figured it could wait. I had no idea what was coming. Later that evening, I walked into our house feeling overjoyed and full of hope. But that feeling disappeared the second I stepped inside. Kathleen was already there. She had let herself in using the spare key we had given her for emergencies. She was sitting on our couch, her arms crossed, her face twisted with anger. The happiness I had felt just minutes before vanished. As soon as I walked in, she jumped to her feet and shouted, "You lied to me." I stood there confused. What was she talking about? She glared at me and said that I had promised her years ago that I would wear her old wedding dress. A dress that, to be honest, looked like it belonged in a museum. I was stunned. I had no memory of ever making such a promise. Maybe I had made a polite comment about it a long time ago, just to be nice. But even if I had, it wasn't some kind of binding agreement. Kathleen didn't care. She called me a liar, saying I didn't deserve to marry her son. Her words cut deep. I kept looking around, hoping Larry would walk in and stand up for me. But he was nowhere to be found. I tried to explain. I tried to reason with her. But she wouldn't listen. Her voice got louder, her words harsher. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. Feeling alone in my own relationship, I walked to my room, my heart heavy with humiliation and defeat. Even with the door shut, I could still hear Kathleen's angry voice echoing through the house. It felt like an eternity before I finally heard the front door slam shut. A few moments later, Larry walked into our room. He looked at me like nothing had happened, like he had been completely unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded. "Why is my mom so upset?" he asked, as if he hadn't heard her yelling from wherever he had been hiding. A wave of frustration and disbelief washed over me. Was he serious? Did he really not know? I took a deep breath and explained everything, hoping he would finally take my side, comfort me, support me, stand up for me. But instead, he sighed and started defending her. Larry said that years ago, when we first started dating, I had admired his mother's wedding dress and mentioned that I'd love to wear it. Maybe I had said something polite at the time to be nice, but there was no way I had actually promised to wear it on my wedding day. Still, Larry insisted that I was the one being unreasonable. He said his mother had every right to feel hurt. That night, I went to bed feeling more alone than ever. My heart was heavy with disappointment. I lay there in the dark, replaying everything in my mind. How had it come to this? How had the man I loved for 7 years chosen his mother's feelings over mine again? I tossed and turned, feeling a deep, painful realization settle in my chest. I thought about all the times I had put his family's needs before mine, all the sacrifices I had made. And for what? To be treated like a liar. To be made to feel like an outsider in my own relationship. A morning of heartbreak. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages from Kathleen. Each one felt like a knife to my heart. She called me selfish, ungrateful. She told me I wasn't worthy of marrying her precious son. Tears filled my eyes as I read through her hateful words. How could she do this? How could someone I had tried so hard to please turn on me so quickly? I showed the messages to Larry, hoping, begging really, that he would finally see how cruel his mother was being. That he would finally stand up for me. But he just shrugged. "She's probably just hurt that you don't want to wear her dress," he said casually. "Just give her some time to calm down." I stared at him in shock. Did he really not see what was happening? Kathleen wasn't just hurt. She was trying to ruin our engagement. She wanted to make me look like the bad guy. I felt anger bubble up inside me. This wasn't about a dress anymore. It was about respect. It was about support. It was about having a partner who would stand up for me. And it was painfully clear now, Larry was not that partner. I tried one last time to make him understand. I told him, "This is our wedding." But deep down, I already knew the truth. It would never truly be ours. The moment everything fell apart, I should have felt beautiful and confident in the dress I chose. After all, it was my wedding. To make peace, I even suggested compromises, wearing a piece of Kathleen's jewelry or using fabric from her dress in my veil. But none of it was good enough. Larry refused to budge. He insisted that I either wore the entire dress or I was ungrateful. To him and his mother, it was all or nothing. And I was starting to feel like I had no place in this wedding at all. A battle I couldn't win. The days that followed were filled with tension and endless arguments. Kathleen continued her mission to turn people against me. She sent me cruel messages, spreading lies about me, and even reached out to some of my friends to turn them against me. And Larry? He did nothing to stop her. If anything, he seemed to agree with her more and more. He made me feel like I was the problem. Like I was the unreasonable one for wanting to wear my own dress at my own wedding. I felt like I was losing my mind. The final conversation. Then came the moment that changed everything. The tension between Larry and me had reached a breaking point. I knew we needed to have a serious conversation, one that would decide if our relationship was even worth saving. That evening, I waited for him to come home. When he walked in, I was ready. We sat in the living room, and I poured my heart out. I told him how hurt I was, how unsupported I felt, how his mother's constant interference was tearing us apart. "This is supposed to be our wedding," I said. "Not a chance for your mother to relive her past." But instead of listening, Larry got defensive. "You're overreacting," he snapped. "This is about family. The wedding isn't just for us. It's for them too." His words felt like a slap in the face. At that moment, I realized just how deep his loyalty to his mother ran. I took a shaky breath and asked, "Larry, are you marrying me or your mother? Because it feels like you're more committed to her than to us." That question set him off. His face twisted in anger. He started shouting, accusing me of being selfish, of making a big deal out of nothing. I felt my heart breaking all over again. I looked at him and said the words I never thought I would. "I'm seriously reconsidering this engagement. I can't marry someone who won't stand up for me." Instead of hearing me out, he rolled his eyes and dismissed me, like I was throwing a tantrum. His indifference hurt more than I could describe. I turned to walk away, hoping to end the argument before it got worse. But then it did. Larry grabbed my arm, spun me around, and slapped me across the face. The impact was shocking. My cheek burned from the sting, but the real pain came from what it meant. The man I loved had just hit me. And in that moment I knew this wasn't love anymore. Choosing myself over him. I couldn't believe it. He had actually hit me. The man I thought I would spend my life with, the man I had loved for 7 years, had resorted to violence. Tears filled my eyes as I stood there, frozen in shock. My cheek burned, but the real pain was inside me. Larry stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, running straight back to his mother's side. Again, I felt numb. The slap itself didn't hurt as much as the emotional betrayal. This was the final line he had crossed, and there was no going back. Walking away for good. I knew I had to protect myself. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and called my sister, Janet. She came over immediately. The moment she saw the red mark on my cheek, her eyes filled with anger and concern. She pulled me into a tight hug, holding me like she could shield me from all the pain. "You're coming with me," she said firmly. I didn't argue. Together, we packed a bag. I knew I couldn't stay in that house another second. My relationship with Larry was over, and I had to make sure he never hurt me again. As we walked out the door, I felt a mix of relief and heartbreak. A part of me still ached for what I thought we had. But deep down, I knew I was doing the right thing, taking back my power. The next morning, I woke up with clarity. I knew what had to be done. With Janet by my side, I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order against Larry. I provided photos of the red mark on my cheek. I showed the toxic messages from Kathleen, proof of the mental and emotional torment I had endured for so long. The process felt both empowering and heartbreaking. It was surreal, standing there, taking legal action against someone I had once loved with all my heart. But I had no choice. I had to protect myself. Once the paperwork was filed, I made the difficult but necessary calls to cancel the wedding, turning pain into strength. The first call was to the venue. I braced myself for the worst, but to my surprise, they were understanding and kind. They allowed me to transfer the deposit to another event. I decided to use it for something better, an early birthday party. Something to celebrate my freedom and strength instead of mourning a relationship that was never meant to be. The caterer, however, wasn't as understanding. I lost part of the money, but at that point I didn't even care. All that mattered was that I was finally free, letting go of the past. And then there was the engagement ring, a symbol that had once meant forever. Now it just felt like a burden. Larry refused to take it back, claiming it was a gift. But I didn't want it. I wasn't his anymore. And I was never looking back, turning pain into something good. I decided to sell the engagement ring and donate the money to a domestic violence shelter. It was a small way to turn something painful into something meaningful. It gave me a sense of closure, knowing that something that once symbolized heartbreak could now help others in need. But even with the restraining order, Kathleen wasn't done. She went on a smear campaign, using social media to spread lies about me. She called me a selfish, ungrateful bride who had broken her son's heart. She even reached out to some of my family members, hoping to turn them against me. But my family and true friends saw through her manipulations. They stood firmly by my side. It was comforting to know that I had people who believed in me and supported my decision. Larry's desperation. Larry, on the other hand, was a mess. One moment, he was begging for forgiveness. The next, he was blaming me for everything. One evening, he even showed up unannounced at my new apartment. Tears streamed down his face as he pleaded for me to take him back. Seeing him, the man I had once loved, now standing before me as a stranger, made my skin crawl. I had to threaten to call the police before he finally left. And that moment only made my resolve stronger. There was no turning back. Finding strength in my support system. To move forward, I leaned on the people who truly cared about me. My parents, who had been furious when they learned what had happened, helped me move the last of my things out of the apartment I had shared with Larry. They also offered to cover any legal fees I might need, reminding me that I was not alone. Some of my friends were incredibly supportive, always checking in on me and making sure I was okay. But not everyone understood. A few people questioned why I hadn't just worn the dress to keep the peace. Those friendships became strained, but in the end, I realized it was for the best. This experience had shown me who my true friends were. Rebuilding my life. As the weeks passed, I slowly started to rebuild my life. The early birthday party I had planned at what would have been our wedding venue turned out to be a beautiful celebration. I was surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported me. I laughed. I danced. And for the first time in years, I felt light and free. The joy in that room wasn't just about the party. It was a reminder of my strength and the freedom I had fought for. That day wasn't about the pain that led up to it. It was about the healing and happiness that followed. Turning a honeymoon into an adventure. Instead of letting the honeymoon trip go to waste, Janet and I decided to go together. We flew to London, a place I had always dreamed of visiting. What was supposed to be a romantic escape turned into an unforgettable sister adventure. We walked through the charming streets, ate delicious Italian food, and had deep conversations that made me feel whole again. It wasn't the honeymoon I had once imagined, but it turned out to be exactly what I needed. A different kind of love story. The trip wasn't what I had once imagined, but it turned out to be exactly what I needed. A journey that celebrated love and resilience in a new, but equally meaningful way. When I got back home, I focused on healing. I started therapy, where I worked through the emotional scars left by my relationship with Larry. It was hard to face the truth, the red flags I had ignored, the compromises I had made, and the self-worth I had lost along the way. But each session helped me understand myself better. I learned to trust my instincts, to set boundaries, and to recognize that I deserved respect and love, things I would never settle for less than again. Letting go for good. Over time, Larry and Kathleen faded into the background of my life. Once the restraining order and our mutual no-contact agreement were finalized, Larry's desperate attempts to win me back finally stopped. Kathleen's smear campaign also lost steam. People saw the truth, and her lies no longer mattered. Then, something unexpected happened. Larry's father reached out to me privately. He apologized for everything, admitting that he understood my decision and wished me well. It was a small gesture, but it meant more than I could have imagined. Surrounded by real love. Through it all, my family remained my rock. My parents, who had been furious about the slap and everything I had endured, never wavered in their support. My true friends stood by me, showing up in ways that I will always be grateful for. Of course, some people didn't understand why I had taken such a strong stand. Those friendships faded away, but I realized that was part of the healing process. I had learned to surround myself only with people who lifted me up, reclaiming my power. The engagement ring, once a symbol of hope and a future, had become a painful reminder of what I had survived. Selling it and donating the money to a domestic violence shelter was one of the most empowering things I had ever done. It felt like a way to take back my power, to turn my pain into something that could help others. No regrets, only lessons. People often ask me if I regret anything. The truth? I don't. As painful as this experience was, it taught me some of the most important lessons of my life. I learned to trust myself. I learned to never settle for less than I deserve. I learned that my happiness and well-being come first. I'm not ready to date again yet, but I know that when I am, I will enter relationships with a clearer understanding of what I want and need. I'll never ignore red flags again. I'll always prioritize respect and partnership over anything else. Rediscovering myself. For now, I'm just focusing on me. I've started picking up hobbies I once put on hold. I'm spending more time with friends and family. I'm rediscovering who I am outside of a relationship. And for the first time in a long time, I feel free. A new beginning. I am stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I ever thought I could be. And for the first time in a long time, I feel genuinely hopeful about the future. Thank you for being part of this emotional journey with me. If this story touched you, made you think, or kept you engaged until the end, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please consider liking this video to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories. Your comments mean so much to me, so feel free to share your reactions, favorite moments, or any feedback you have. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are stronger than you think.